joining us for another session of our live calls. We do this every Thursday morning at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Joining me today is our community manager, Deneen Goncalves.
Hello, hello. Happy to be here again on this lovely Thursday.
Yeah, this is my favorite time of the week, and I'm stealing that from you.
All right.
We're talking about managing a private Facebook group, which is a topic I've been, to be frank, kind of avoiding because it's so hard. Because there are some significant pitfalls that I just want to not, skirt around, but it's important that we address it. So I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, this will be good. I'm excited also to hear what other people are doing, if they've tried it, if they've been successful, or if they've been hesitant and why. I can come up with some ideas of why, but it'd be neat to hear from those that are attending right now.
Yeah, and to our live listeners, please feel free to chime in. I think this is a topic that could really use quite a bit in the way of input and questions. It's dangerous for us because we're going to make some assumptions just about what we know. And so feel free to guide the conversation with any questions you may have. And like Deneen said, any input you have, because if you've done it, we might need your help.
Right.
So a Facebook group, just a preface before we dive too deep into the weeds, this is a little bit different than your normal Facebook page. And if you're not familiar, Facebook allows you to have a private group that's invitation only, or that allows you to proctor the attendees. And you as the group administrator can assign other admins. And I don't like using the word censor, Deneen. What's something better?
Moderate. How about vetting those that come in?
Yeah, it would vet the attendees or group members, and also vet the content or copy. So if somebody posts something, you can actually put settings in place to where you have to approve all posts first, or if you want to, allow people to post organically, and then you could retroactively remove things or remove members. This is helpful because unlike a Facebook page, you have far more control over this ecosystem, which puts you in a position to be able to manage this as a utility. And the intention here that we're putting in front of Montessori schools is using this as a place for your parents to gather and connect and be social and talk and chat and ask questions. I don't think personally, and Deneen, please correct me if you disagree, I don't think this needs to be a support channel. That should be handled more, directly through the school, but I think it should be an extension of the community, sort of the digital arm. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. Because, I look at it this way. So if a parent needs support specifically for the child, going to the guide or going directly to the head of school is the right channel to go through. If, though, you've got questions just about in general about Montessori, or parenting, I think this could be a neat place to pose those questions and then post, articles or blogs that maybe you've written that answer those questions. So it could kind of get the conversation going.
You completely agreed. I think this is a great place for engagement, especially, because the parent base is diverse and you're not going to get everybody in one room would be my assumption. But you can probably get close to everybody inside of a Facebook group.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to comment that creating a Facebook group is exceptionally easy from a functional standpoint. Let me actually drag my window over. Sorry, my computer's being a little laggy. So to create a Facebook group, just make sure you're logged into Facebook, your Facebook profile, and the group is going to be tethered to your account. In the top right-hand corner, you click on Create, and then choose Group. It's going to ask you a few questions, specifically the name of your group, and then the creation is almost immediate. What's really nice about Facebook, though, is it allows you to gate the group and require members to answer questions in order to be a part of the Facebook group. So Nito does this. If you try to join the Nito Marketing Facebook group, you'll be asked 2 questions. And if you don't answer those questions, we don't let you in because the assumption is that you're not engaged or not necessarily an applicable prospect. So this is a really good way of, just making sure the people that are coming into your Facebook group are the right folks. The Facebook group. David asks, what are the screening questions? Oh, what are our questions, Deneen? We ask, how big is your school by student size? And we also ask, what is your biggest marketing struggle?
Right.
And that's for Nito. I think for a school, my initial screening question is what is your relationship to the school? Because it's not always going to be um, readily apparent. I mean, people have different last names, and Facebook profiles tend to be a little bit different online. So I'd ask what your relationship to the school is, and then maybe one more question that signals engagement. And my opinion is these questions can be um, a little ethereal. And I actually feel that way about our second question. What's your biggest marketing problem? Some people answer that with detail, and some people answer that with, they're very sparse in their response. But I like it because it gives me a sense as to the person's personality, and it also gives me the ability to welcome them into the Facebook group with a little bit of additional context. Like, hey, everybody, welcome David to the Needle Marketing Facebook group. Really happy to have him. He's working towards increasing admissions as well. So anybody who's had a similar problem or has any ideas can reach out. You don't want to air out anything personal, but we're all in it for the same reasons. And so I think you can do the same thing with your parents, and create those specific introductions, but use the screening questions to gather that information. What do you think, Deneen? Is that a good idea?
It is. I do have a question. Are you able to put guidelines in front of people before you accept them?
There's a small amount of text on the front end. The guidelines inside the group, and honestly, it's a question I don't know the direct answer to. I'm trying to think back from memory, having built our group. The guidelines that we have are in a pinned post at the very top of the group. And you can pin a post. Well, pinning means you just tell Facebook, hey, I want this post to be at the very top forever. And so using Nito's group as an example, after you join, you see this is our pinned post, and here's welcome and community guidelines. And our community guidelines are pretty basic. I mean, it's what you would expect. Just be nice to people and don't be a jerk and have fun. We wrote some templated guidelines for Montessori schools that we'll share here on this call that are a little more in depth. As far as what happens prior to joining, I don't know the answer to that.
Because I imagine it would be really neat or beneficial to have them in front of whoever wants to join. And then you have a question, did you read through the guidelines thoroughly? And then they answer yes or no. And so then who's ever in the group has clearly read through your guidelines. Because if they're in the group, it's kind of, it's up to them whether or not they go to that particular spot or not.
I love the question, have you read our guidelines? And I am pretty sure you can link to an outside page in the questions you're asking. And so you could actually link to that page from those questions and just say, have you read the guidelines? So that when they answer yes, you at least have a little bit of, implied opt-in.
Right. Because if in the conversation or if posts happen that go outside of your guidelines, you can just, hey, friendly reminder, this is our guidelines. You you saw them and read them before you joined.
I love that idea. I actually think that should be a rule in building a Facebook parent group. I think that we should ask parents, have you read our community guidelines? And then make them say yes. And that means that you have to spend some time customizing the guidelines so they really are suited to what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And that's actually an adequate segue. Your Facebook group can be custom tailored to your specific needs. I'm of the opinion that you can have a group for existing parents. You can have a group for current prospects or past prospects potentially. And past prospects are people that looked at your school but did not enroll. Think about the cost per acquisition of every new person that walks into your school and how much money and time you've invested in that relationship that at first blush didn't go anywhere. Well, they still have children that still need education, and they might find out the decision they made, to go to a more traditional facility wasn't the correct decision, and they might be receptive to a change a year later. Or they've got younger children that are going to enter and again felt like they made the wrong decision just because they didn't understand Montessori on the outset. My wife and I toured a new school recently, and she was shocked again, and knowing everything she knows about Montessori, she was shocked at how calm the classroom was. And her comment was the exact same thing I've heard Matt say all the time. She goes, oh, I don't know if Sammy can do this. So when you have current and past prospects, having a group specifically for them puts you in a position to nurture them in a really friendly environment. But you have to realize at that point that that's the group you're building. You're building a group that's built around thought leadership and educating people that aren't at your school. And so now this is more about, tips and conversation and best practices, where a group for existing parents will encompass those topics as well. But now you're having personal conversations, and this can become an alert board and a place to house like news and events and talk about things that are more personal to your classroom. So get really clear on what your group needs to be about, and that, I think, will act as your initial indicator as to who the group is for. Deneen, any input there?
No, I think that's perfect. That's exactly it. Would you advise having multiple closed Facebook groups? I mean, looking at this list, I imagine we could do all of them, right? That's a lot to manage.
Depending on the school's bandwidth. I know of a school, they're actually not a member, but I know of a school that has a closed group for every classroom. So every teacher manages their own group. It works out really well for them. They don't send emails. Parents are expected to check the bulletin on the group. It's a really creative way of addressing the communication problem and issue. I don't know that I agree with it, but it's worked for them. And they enforce it really strongly. So you can have as many groups as you have the ability to manage, but that's a really big caveat. If it's one person managing this group, then I would stick with one and choose the one that you think is going to serve your needs the best. My assumption is it's going to be the existing parents group. I would expect that to be the group that probably delivers the most value over time, because you're able to engage parents. And you can combine, I think, existing parents, internal staff, and strategic partners all into one group. The current and past prospects, that needs to be an independent group, in my opinion. But the other three categories, I think, could be combined into one. And now it's just about your school. Hey, here's what's going on in our school. Here's something that happened in the classroom. Look what we did at the park today, that sort of thing.
Right. Well, and I mean, I think it's also important to continue to remember that not everybody's on Facebook. And so if you are going to have these groups, you have to have another way to communicate to your parents, because there are some people that really either just recently quit Facebook or have never been on it or vow to never be on it for the rest of their life. So we have to remember those people too.
And it's such a good point, because Facebook is slowly dying. They're denying that fact, and they keep releasing usage data that insists that they're growing. But the average time on Facebook is declining. The number of new signups is declining. And then, as subsequent generations become parents, I think that Facebook usage is going to decline significantly. And so we want to be really careful about relying too heavily, like the school that I mentioned. I don't think that Facebook should be the epicenter of your community. I think it should be a supplement to it.
Right.
Because you will need to segue over to another application at some point. Like, Facebook's not going to be around forever. The internet has proven that. It really loves destroying things and doing so quickly. So I don't say that to scare anybody. I don't want to scare you off from using Facebook. I think that we can, but it's really easy to put up a Facebook group. It's not quite as easy to manage it, but once you have that management process in place, that can segue over to any online community, because now the standard operating procedures are the same regardless of where you head.
Right. Is this something that can be added to the dashboard as well to manage it?
I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm sorry.
So you know how with some of our members we have dashboards that can manage local listings and Facebook posts and Google reviews. Is this group something that can be added to the dashboard as well?
What a great question. I think the answer is regretfully no.
Man.
Yeah. Looking at our dashboard, it looks like it's only integrating Facebook pages. I don't believe that it integrates Facebook groups, but I will ask the folks at Sign Up, because they're the ones that run our dashboard for us.
That would be pretty slick.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, because that would make management so much easier.
Right. And then you can have all of these groups and not worry about it.
Right. I think another pro tip in managing these groups is finding a few parent advocates. Actually, you know what? I'll get to that. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry. So first, where to start? When you're building your group, I think the name is very important. You want to make sure that your name is something that conveys the value that your members are going to get. If you just name it your school's name, it's going to look too much like your Facebook page, and people aren't going to understand. It's okay to have a longer name in your Facebook group. Our name actually for Nito, I think, is pretty long. We've got our name in there, and then we call it Montessori Marketing dash Nito Marketing Members, which again is long and cumbersome, but it's important for people to know what it is that we're going after first, especially for people that don't know what Nito is, and then explain to them that it's specifically for members of our community. For your school, think about the goal and why you're structuring this group. And, I mean, it could be the private parents group at Mission Montessori, or whatever you think is applicable. But again, please make it descriptive, because I think that's going to help catalyze new joins. Any ideas there, Deneen? What would you name your group if you had a school?
Ooh, let me think about that, because I don't want to. I actually take names pretty seriously, so I spend a lot of time thinking about. So I can't come up with one right on a whim.
No, that's perfectly fine. I'll circle back if you have any ideas. The other thing I'll mention is this is the name that's going to show up in people's news feed when you send out information. So you want to make sure the name doesn't appear generic, or like it's just a random post from your school. You want them to know, oh, this is coming from the group. This is specific to me.
Right.
The publicity setting allows you to choose whether or not you're going to have an open or closed group. I recommend a closed group, but not a secret group. A public group means anybody can join, and you're not restricting access. I think for a school, especially because you're sharing private information in some instances, that's not advisable. The secret group doesn't allow people to find you online. You have to share with them the link to your group, and that's too hard and cumbersome from a management perspective, which is my opinion. The closed group allows people to find you online. So if they search for your school name, or even potentially your name, the group could come up if you want it to. Now, even though the group is attached to your personal profile, that doesn't mean that people need to see or know who you are or find your personal profile. But if you want to make it publicly available, you can. And you actually have to do so intentionally. So you're not going to accidentally expose yourself or make your personal profile available. But the closed group allows people to find you and then request access, and then you as the administrator get to go in and allow them to have access. So we recommend closed groups. The group rules are exceptionally important. You want to make sure that you have some really clear community guidelines. We just posted in the Neato member area yesterday. We created a new resource, and we created Facebook group guidelines for Montessori schools. So if you go to the resources section in your main menu, and then you scroll down to the templates, we have the Montessori Parent Facebook Group Guidelines, which is kind of an annoying name, but that's the best I could do. And I actually have those here just to share with you briefly. They're relatively short, but we touch all of the points that we need to touch. And we have a misspelling, which is hysterical and embarrassing considering that this is live and I'm speaking to a group of educators. I'm not even going to apologize.
Don't worry, we've all done it.
But my recommendation would be to go in and customize these guidelines to suit your group's needs, because they're going to be very specific, and you also want to customize them to suit your school. And we've got some brackets here where we play fill in the blanks. We looked at half a dozen different online groups and communities, and we compiled this list based off of the ones that we found were the best. So hopefully this is a valuable resource to you. And shout out to Nicole over at Acton Academy who made this request. Really appreciate you telling us what you need. And just a soft, self-indulgent moment. If you need, as a Montessori school, if you need something, if you need a resource or a template or a guide or an image or a video or a blog, tell us, let us know. Treat us as your order takers, because if it's something that we will, if it's something we feel is going to serve our member community, we'll create it for you. And you've got an entire digital marketing agency at your beck and call. So anything you need, please let us know. We're dying to be of value. Anyway, moving on, the description and cover image. You want to make sure your description is clear, because this is also what Facebook is using to help people find you through their search. And it's how people are going to understand your group. And the cover image is the thing that everybody sees right away and most often. And so you'll notice our cover image is very basic, but that was by intention. We want to let them know, hey, this is who we are, and this is what we're doing. We're a marketing organization for Montessori schools by Montessori schools. So make sure that you spend some time on your cover image. Don't let this be generic, Facebook's generic background, because it's ugly and it doesn't do its job at helping brand your group. Any input about that, Deneen, before I move forward?
Oh, sorry, I was responding to Nicole and David. They said,
oh, that's okay. Oh,
thank you very much for what we were giving them.
Moving on to the content that you can post in your group. This is the hard part, is coming up with things to say. If you're a Neato member, I'd recommend using the content that we're creating and repurposing that for your group. The best thing about groups is you get to rehash content on a regular basis because you're always adding new parents, and the same content applies to multiple scenarios and situations. My ideal scenario for any group is to have member made content. When somebody outside of us posts in the Needle group, I cannot begin to tell you how happy it makes me, because it lets me know that we actually have a community. When it's just us talking to everybody else, that's a bulletin board. When it's our members talking to us, that's a support system. When it's our members talking to our members, that's a community. And that's the benchmark that I would set. It's the line in the sand that I would draw for you. You're always going to have, your 10% of your members are going to be the most active, but you want to find that 10%. If you've got 100 parents involved, there's going to be 10 that are talking, but you really want to cultivate those 10 and get them to ask questions, come up with ideas, share links, really become advocates of this member group. And if you can find that, I think you're going to have a thriving membership. And the best part, it's going to take way less time for you to manage.
Costin, can you say that again? You said that so beautifully. So when we're posting, we become a bulletin. Will you go back there? Because I think that could be its own slide.
Sure. And I'm trying to remember exactly how I phrased it, but when it's us posting to our members, it's a bulletin board. When it's our members posting to us, it's a support channel. But when it's our members communicating with other members, then it's a community.
Right.
And that's the way I think that we can qualify success for our Facebook groups, is as soon as we can get our members. Imagine as a school, if you can get parents to begin engaging with each other and, hanging out outside of the school, talk about the best way for you to cement your positioning in their lives ever. You just became like the nucleus to some of the most important relationships they may ever have. And I think that that's something that a Facebook group, I'm not trying to overstate the value of this. I'm being as honest as I can be. I truly believe that can happen. And I know it can happen because it's happened to me before. In different contexts and instances, I've been in online communities that have resulted in long-lasting and enduring, friendships, business relationships, and so you can place people in that position. We just need to make sure that we develop it appropriately. Did I do okay job there, Deneen?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
I know I soapboxed there a minute. I do that a lot. I'm so sorry.
No, it's good. It's important for us to think about.
Facebook has some really awesome tools that you can use. One of my favorites is their polling feature. You can create polls. It's free to use. There's a lot of third-party apps you can install if you want to. I've never done it. I probably never will. I just I don't want to get too fancy with it. I like asking questions. I like running polls. I like conducting surveys. I think contests are tons of fun, but you need to be really careful with them because you might get some ultra competitive parents in there, and you just want to make sure that it's being received appropriately. But work to engage your members. You don't need to manage your Facebook group daily. I think if you committed to posting a very compelling question once a week and then responding once a week, I think that that's enough, because hopefully you have parents in there that are also engaging. So it's not all entirely up to you. So hopefully that makes this a less daunting task. Facebook groups are also acceptable places for you to host media that you might not want to use in a completely public forum. Now, you don't want to put private images here, and you don't want to put images that you don't already have an image release for. So if you're going to post an image of a child, I'd still strongly recommend that you have the image release for that child, because the Facebook group is still technically a public forum, but it's not public to the world. And so if there are things that are proprietary to your school, or that you just wouldn't necessarily want to put on a website, but you don't mind sharing with a closed group that is nothing more than your parents and alumni, then I think that Facebook is a good place for you to put this type of media. This is especially true. There's a book called Ask. I think the author's name is Ryan Levesque. I might be misstating that, but he talks about the importance of asking your customers what they want. And this is a place for you to do that in a safe environment. Reaching out to your parents one at a time can be difficult, but if you do like a Facebook Live video and just ask people, hey, we were thinking about doing a hot lunch program. Is that something everybody would be interested in? This is an excellent place to go in for just a quick testing of the waters and litmus test.
That's a great idea, for sure. Because I think so often do we kind of go quickly to the surveys, we want to know how our parents are doing or what they think. And this could be a really great avenue to do it subtly without sending a survey monkey or, kind of going through that whole process where you can have your finger to the pulse and see what people's opinions are.
Absolutely. And it's so much easier when people send me those surveys, even people that I really like, they always make it so hard. Because first I have to register for anything, even though they've brought it down to like 0.05 seconds, right? Like registration is the easiest thing in the world, but there's still something embedded in our psyche that goes, oh, I don't want another username and password to remember. I don't want another, outside network emailing me.
Or like, where does my information go?
Right. Are you selling this to Facebook? Yeah, exactly. So the registration issues, that's already a problem. And then after that, the surveys tend to be so academic and we spend too much time providing way too much context. The Facebook surveys and polls are just really easy. I'm already in there. It's easy for me to rattle off something. I'm used to kind of commenting, sort of willy-nilly and ad hoc on other things anyway. So it's just a really friendly environment for people to kind of be themselves. And I think you end up getting more organic responses because of it.
Oh, so here's the thing I want to think about. Like, let's say you talk or you pose the question, hey, you guys, how do you think about car line? We're thinking about trying this new car line thing. What are your thoughts? And let's say people are either like really excited or super opposed to it. Does that now put you in a position where you absolutely need to respond and do what the community is telling you to do? And I ask this because I think, we have to be a little careful on how much we put out there and how much we portray our responsiveness and our willingness to kind of move based on what people are saying, if that makes sense.
Yes, and I've got a friend and a mentor in the agency space who has said, never ask a question you don't want the answer to. So you're absolutely right. If you pose a question and you find that your parents are vehemently opposed to whatever it is that you're presenting,
and you're like, man, that was such a good idea. I'm still gonna do it.
But to be honest, I kind of look at that as a mini win too. Like, oh goodness, thank goodness I asked.
Yeah.
I might have rolled that out, and then now you've got a staged coup and pitchfork. What is it? Fire and pitchforks and all that stuff. Yeah. So this is the opportunity for you to test some of those ideas. I do think that if you feel very strongly about something, regardless of what your parents' input is going to be, then don't ask for input. That becomes a mandate, and that's your right as the head of school. This is the best thing for us moving forward. And this is what we decided to do. But if you really do want the input, it's time to reach out. Now, you might reach out and find out that 99% of your parents are for, and you have the 1% that are against, and those are the loudest. And that will always be true, I think, just in life, because that's how humans are, right? Like we cheer softly, but if we're going to decry everything, we just do it with our entire soul. And I don't know why that is. But I think what it does do is it gives you the opportunity to reach out to those people and maybe mitigate some of the blowback and soften the blow. So it's the canary in the coal mine that lets you know, oh, okay, Qasim's going to be my problem child here. Let me go figure out why. I'll take this conversation offline, talk to him directly. And then again, I look at that as a mini win. It is a little uncomfortable, but it brings the discomfort to the forefront, which makes everything else much easier long-term. Agree, disagree?
No, I think that's absolutely right. And it also, well, hopefully, diminishes the likelihood of those conversations happening at, a social or a party or, hopefully, right? I mean, I think those will always happen because it's behind closed doors and then no one's watching, and, you'll never have a full understanding of how that happens with parents. But I think being able to have some context and hit it head on, I think is really the way to handle it.
You're absolutely right. I actually have a specific example for you. I'm a part of a Facebook group for a marketing automation software. They're very big, and they've had some really severe problems recently. And somebody asked the CEO, they said, do you regret the online community? Do you regret cultivating that? Because it was something they did for free. And he goes, no, not at all. Because if they weren't saying this to my face, they would be talking about it behind my back. And so even when there's negativity and hopefully that just doesn't happen, we're able to avoid it. And I think with a Montessori parent base, that's more likely than other parent bases, because I do feel like this is a more sophisticated buyer. But all that said, even when there's negativity in the group, if people complain about things or, you have to contend with some of the discomfort that comes with criticism. In my mind, that's preferable to not knowing it's happening until it's too late. And you have parents whispering behind your back and taking it offline, so to speak. This at least puts you in a position to be ahead of it.
Right. Yeah.
The very last note I'd like to make about the content is I think group events, if you can get very consistent with it. For instance, this webinar I think is a perfect example. We do our coaching calls every Thursday at 10:30. Everybody knows that we do that. And I think more people than not watch the recordings, which is perfectly fine. But it's nice that the consistency is there because people know at any point they can opt in if they want to. If you wanted to run a Facebook Live video for a half hour a week, I think your parents would get the biggest kick out of that. And, maybe you could do it, or a teacher could do it, or all your teachers could do it. It's not too much to ask of a person, I think, to hop on and, it could be 15 minutes. Those Facebook Live videos don't need to be that long. But what's nice about them is Facebook prioritizes those from a notification standpoint. So when somebody logs into Facebook, if somebody's live, they're going to see that first. And Facebook even uses push notifications for live video. So if you jump into the Facebook group and start a live video, and I'll show you how easy this is to do. We actually need to start doing more of this ourselves, Deneen, to be honest with you. I feel like a hypocrite right now because we do very little of it.
I was planning to do one tomorrow.
Oh, let's do it. I'm sorry. Did I let the cat out of the bag?
A little bit.
Surprise. When you're in your group, when it asks you to write something, you can just click on live video. And instantly it pulls up everything that you need. You can name a title for your video. I'm going to open my webcam and show you guys my office here. So if I wanted to, I could be here in front of everybody, and you can see my microphone and my camera backdrop I have behind me that needs to be ironed.
It looks like you're in a studio.
Yeah, I bought this because I make tutorial videos for things, and I was tired of just like cleaning my office. So I thought instead that I would buy a backdrop, and it repels, so I can bring it down whenever I want to. If you don't want to share your camera, you do not have to. You can actually turn that off, which is kind of cool. And instead, you can choose to share your screen, which might be preferable. So very easy to go live. Once I go live, it's going to say 3, 2, 1. And the benefit is, if you ever mess up going live, Facebook tells you, hey, do you really want to post this afterwards? And you can say, no, let's not do that. So everybody who saw it live is still going to see what you did or what you said, but it's not going to live forever. So it gives you the opportunity to manage it. The etiquette with go live videos, in my opinion, is you welcome people as you see them join, because Facebook's going to say, hey, Nicole's watching. And you can say, hey, Nicole, how are you? Just to catch you up. Here's what I'm talking about. You also want to make sure you don't start talking right away, because it takes a while for people to trickle in. So what you'll notice with people that are really good at Facebook Live is they launch a live video. They might give an intro like, oh, check out the weather. And then they start doing really wacky things in the video, like waving or being really wild, because as people are scrolling through their news feed, you don't want it to just be your face and you're droning on and you're super, placid. You kind of want to be animated because you want to give people the opportunity to see you. And they also need to enable the audio. So you want them to be curious about what it is you're saying. And that's a Facebook Live video. I think that this is an excellent, excellent, excellent piece of content for Facebook groups in particular, because it doesn't have to be public. So you kind of get to be a dork a little bit, and you get to talk about things, or, you could do like an Ask Me Anything. And it's just a really good way for you to brand yourself, brand your teachers, get your parents engaged, etc. And it's something I'd strongly recommend. Any input on that, Deneen? How'd I do?
Great. How neat would it be if, one of your administrators at your school would just like walk down the hallway during lunchtime and like peek in the room and say, hey, this is what it's like during lunch. Are you enjoying your lunch at work? Your children definitely are, which I think would be so cool. I would love to get that as a parent. Be like, oh, cool. That's kind of
I'd get the biggest kick out of that. Yeah, you're absolutely. And then if you just, happen to see your kid in the background, like that would make my day, because I never get to see my son in a really organic context. Like I try to sneak up on him, which sounds really weird and creepy, but I just want to see what he's like when I'm not there. But there's a bottleneck in the classroom, so he always spots me. But I'd love to be able to just kind of be a fly on the wall. And if you caught that briefly in a video, I just think that, there's a lot of warm and fuzzy to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that, will that go into, some people that opt out of wanting anything for social media? You'd have to be aware of that, right? If you're going to do Facebook Live.
Yes, Facebook is the conduit through which we are delivering this content. And so if they've restricted their Facebook communication, your content is going to be included in that. I will say that I think they now have to specifically opt out of Facebook Live notifications, because Facebook's very bullish with video and Facebook Live in general. So it is still more likely that people see Facebook Live videos than it is anything else.
Okay. Well, I think, specifically parents in our schools that say, I don't want my child on anything for social media or anything on the website. If you are doing Facebook Live, we just have to be sure that we're not getting any of those children in those videos.
What a great point I hadn't thought of. You have to make sure your releases are in place because even though it's a closed group, we don't want to have images or video in the background.
Right.
Yeah, good catch. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
I'm always here to help.
Yeah, well, you did a great job. Some engagement tips for you. We were doing this with our group. Do we do it anymore? Do we welcome all new members?
I was just going to do that today. It was slow the past couple weeks.
Okay.
I'm going to welcome them today. We have about 5 or 6 new members. But
Yeah.
yes, for whatever reason though, the button, so Facebook will sometimes remind you like, hey, it's a good idea to welcome your members. I don't see that anymore. So I don't know if they got rid of that.
They might have, because I haven't seen it either. Actually, that's why I brought it up, because I was like, oh my goodness, here I am just bathing in hypocrisy. We used to welcome all new members to our Facebook group, and we will start again right away. Now that we've been
there was a nifty button, it's not there anymore. So now I'm actually not even sure how to do that in such a slick way, other than kind of going through my notes the past couple of weeks and seeing who has joined and then welcome them.
I think the easiest way for us to do it is the minute we accept somebody, we just hop over into the news feed and then tag them.
Yeah.
That'll probably be the best standard operating procedure. And I'd recommend that to our schools too. The minute you accept somebody, what we've been doing, just for context, is we've been accepting them on the fly because that's easier to do. And then welcoming everybody, I think, kind of in bundles. And instead, what I might want to do, Deneen, assuming that you agree and that this isn't cumbersome, is, right when we click accept, then we just hop over and say, hey, everybody, welcome David. He's with, Acton Montessori Academy, et cetera, et cetera. And then if you can provide some specific context, I think that that's always helpful because it gives other members the ability to reach out with, to grasp onto something. I've always noticed I have a friend who's really good at introducing people. And what he does is he doesn't just say, hey, this is Qasim. He says, hey, this is Qasim. He's, I don't know what, he's a marketer, but he gives like a really kind of fun and interesting note, and it gives the other person the opportunity to go, oh my goodness, I hate marketers, or whatever. So I think that that's a good way to introduce people. And I also think that videos make excellent intro media. If you just hopped in there and it's a video of you and you're the head of school, imagine how important a parent feels if you say, hey, Teresa, thanks so much for joining our group. Just wanted to welcome you here. We really work hard to cultivate this. If you don't mind, introduce yourself and tell us, something about you and your family or whatever. I think people get a kick out of that.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way to get them engaged.
So Teresa says, how do you post using the school page rather than your personal account? And when I go to add members, it's all my personal contacts rather than my school page. So the first question I understand. I don't understand that second question. So if you don't mind rephrasing or adding more context, I'm happy to answer it. But let me show you how to post and change who's posting, because I've actually had problems with this myself. When you're flying too quickly, you forget to check all the little nuances. Oops. Sorry, I'm logging in here. Okay. So, Teresa, to answer your first question, you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner, Facebook tells you who you're functioning as. And so right now it tells me that I'm liking and commenting as Needle Marketing. And if I click this, then I can go back and I can actually choose myself, or I can choose my other agency, which gets a little dangerous if you have multiple pages. So if I want to like and comment as myself, this now makes this a personal comment. And if I want to make sure that I'm liking and commenting as Nito, then I choose the groups that I'm a part of and I choose Needle Marketing. And your second question, when I go to add members, it's all my personal contacts rather than my school page. And I'm so sorry, Teresa, I don't understand that. Deneen, are you capturing that?
I think what she's asking, because I have the same problem when I do Nito's page, and I think I have it with the group too. You can toggle back and forth between being, especially if you're an administrator, if you want to act as your school or act as yourself. I don't know where that button is, but I know it exists.
That toggle, I think, is right here. That's where I know of it. There's a little button here underneath the group title that says interacting as yourself.
Right.
And I can toggle over between Kasim and Nito. Oh, and Teresa says, okay, I'll find the button. Thank you. And Teresa, I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to be dismissive of your question at all. Did we answer it though? Was this what you were looking for? Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much for the question. I have no doubt that other people had that exact same question. So I appreciate you chiming in, because this is an important one, and it wasn't one that I had planned to hit. So very well done. Talked about the welcoming, encouraging existing members. I like the idea of reaching out to some of your more active parents and kind of assigning them the advocate role. As a matter of fact, I'd love to ask our live participants if, as Nito members, you wouldn't mind being advocates for us inside of our group. I'm not asking you to do work. I'm just saying that if you happen to be in Facebook when you see a new introduction or see a question and you feel that there's value that you could provide, take the 4 seconds it might cost you to respond, because you're just helping to grow and contribute to our membership. And we're expanding the Montessori mission, and there could be nothing more worthy of our time. But I think you can make that exact same appeal to your parents and be just as bullish as I just was. Let them know this is important. It's important to have all parents engaged. And the more engaged their parents are, the stronger the school is going to be, and the better their child's experience is going to be. And so find your 1 or 2 or 3 parent advocates and pull them aside and say, hey, we're really trying to make this work. Can you please, just chime in every now and again and make sure people know that they're welcome and they're hearing other friendly voices instead of ours. And Deneen, you having come from the classroom, I bet you're probably really good at figuring out who that person should be and also maybe how to approach them.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk with your guides for sure. I know the school that my son is at right now, they have one person, they have a really cool name for it. It's slipping my mind right now, but one parent that helps to bring other parents to the table to help organize events. And so that person would be great to reach out to and say, hey, this Facebook group, we're just starting and we want to get people engaged. Do you think you could put a plug in to the parents that you're bringing in just to remind them that it's there? And then also, go in there and make some comments or posts, because that goes right along with what she's doing as far as organizing volunteers and events and whatnot.
I think that's really well said. And I love, you always go back to including the guides, and you're so good at that. And I understand why. But it's just such a good reminder for all of us that, we need to rope everybody in on the decision-making process.
Well, definitely. And your guides, while they tend to be overworked because we don't sleep because we think about the children all the time, we also have really, really great ideas. And we are more than willing to share them. And I think, in our day-to-day stuff, we may forget to reach out to you. So it's really helpful that you go and take that initiative, maybe even just walking in the classroom and just saying, hey, let's chat for a little bit. Here's what I'm trying to do. What do you think? And I'm sure your guides would be more than happy to give you some ideas, even if it's just a quick 5-minute conversation.
And in your experience, do you think parents would be receptive to being parent advocates?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're doing a really great job at your school.
Yeah. Just make sure you choose the happy parents.
Yeah, totally. And again, your guides will know, and not even just the ones that are like, yes, everything's going great, but the ones that you've kind of been through thick and thin with, where there's been a problem and you've worked through it, you've been very transparent, you helped them through it. I mean, that, I think those are the parents that you want, because your trust is unshakable at that point because you've been through a lot with them. So you want to look for those parents as well, because they'll be able to bend over backwards for you.
Very well said. One note I will make is never let a comment go unanswered. You don't have to answer right away, but make sure that you answer. So again, if you're managing this once a week, I think that's perfectly fine. And it also does not need to be your answer. If you notice another parent chimed in and their answer is adequate, and you don't think it's incumbent upon you to also insert your voice, that's okay. But just make sure that nobody's left out into the wind, because that's a lot like not being picked for the team. You ask a question online and then nobody answers you, and it just feels a little uncomfortable, even though you know people aren't ignoring you. That's sort of the way it feels. So make sure that you're being inclusive and making people feel heard.
So one thing I did notice about this, since I'm managing both the page, Nito's page, and the Facebook group, I recently, and I don't know again if Facebook keeps changing stuff, but I have not, like, I just went in this morning and I just looked at our page. I wasn't notified of some of the comments that were made like 3 or 4 days ago. And that was not the case last month. So I don't know if it's because I'm signed in as myself versus Nito or how that works. But a couple comments have slipped by just because I haven't been notified.
Interesting. So I think it might be a notification setting error. If you go to your notifications, you'll notice that you can get notified about all posts, just the highlights, or you can turn notifications off. And I wonder if you don't have highlights or selected, excuse me.
Yeah, good to know.
The other thing is it's really difficult, but you have to comb through every single thing in your Facebook notification, which can be hard. So it can be helpful if you are running a Facebook group to clean up your other notifications and maybe unsubscribe from the people that are clogging it up, because they might be the reason that you're missing.
Right. That's why the dashboard would be awesome.
And I just checked, sign up does integrate with Facebook groups.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up at the end. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
Oh, the last thing I wanted to say is reward your most active members. And I think, public shout outs are great. If somebody posts really relevant content or new information, it's great to say, hey, Deneen, thanks so much for that article. That's great. But even more than that, if you wanted to, send somebody a nice little trinket or gift saying, thank you so much for helping us cultivate that community, I think it's more than appropriate, because this is so important that you want them to let them know how much you value their input. Real quick, and I'll try not to belabor this topic because I know we're running out of time, and I do want to save some time for Q&A, and I still have a couple of slides left. Sorry, this was a really in-depth topic. Managing your group. You want to create and enforce a very clear code of conduct. We have a template for you to use, so you already have something in place. Please customize it, and also I'll replace the one that's up there so that you don't have to deal with my typo. And then I like the idea of adding it to a pinned post. And, per Deneen's point, you want it to be the very first thing that they see when they're in there. If someone breaks the rules, let them know immediately by private message. Don't do so publicly. That's my opinion. You're more than allowed to delete comments and posts inside your private Facebook group. I don't always say that about Facebook pages. Because a Facebook page is a public page. Now, if somebody says something that's wildly offensive, of course, delete it. But because a Facebook page is a public page, deleting comments, it feels a lot like censorship, which, flies in the face of some of our core principles, I think. In a private Facebook group, you've outlined the expectations, and I think you're allowed to delete just about anything. But if somebody breaks the message, then reach out to them via private message. Make sure you reach out to them via private message and you have it in writing. My opinion is the second time they do it, you remove them from the group. I don't think this is too aggressive. I think that someone who does something once deserves a warning, and someone who does something twice is now a repeat offender, and it's just too hard to manage that at that point. And so I would remove them from the group. Deneen, agree, disagree, any input?
No, I think that's fair, but I also think in between that, a conversation is important.
Absolutely. And, it's also item specific too. I can see people breaking rules just simply on accident. Like we have a no solicitation rule. Well, if somebody posts a link to their, their favorite GoFundMe, and they're trying to help, with just really worthy causes, that to me is a very soft, like, I totally understand why you'd want to do this. We don't allow that because otherwise we're just going to get flooded with this type of content, and it causes parents to disengage. And I don't think that that's the type of person that I would remove, right away. But it just depends on what they're doing and why.
Right.
And I also think that choosing admins to manage your group is helpful. Don't try to do this yourself. You can choose people inside of your school to be administrators of your group. You can also choose people outside of your school. You can have parents become admins and choose, if you have a really great parent advocate, they can be the person that's, accepting people and welcoming them if they want to volunteer for that position. That's okay to delegate that. And I've seen that done with some success in other verticals. This is pretty cool. This is a difficult number to reach. Context for you is Nito's group is only at 200 members right now. We have a member base of 450 schools, but only half of them have joined our Facebook group. And, we're a relatively large organization just as far as membership groups are concerned, considering our niche. So reaching 200 members might take some time, but once you reach 200 members, you get access to Facebook's group insights. And this is really helpful. It's very powerful from a data and analytics standpoint. It tells you which posts are the most engaging, what times you should be creating your posts, which members are the most engaged. So work towards this number. And this might mean inviting some past parents or, some alumni or some strategic partners. This is an okay thing to cheat. Usually I don't say that. I say with internet marketing, you always just want to be 100% on the right side of the line because it's so easy to get caught. But here, if you wanted to add some people to your member base that aren't necessarily going to be the most active members, I think that's okay to do, considering that you want the information they're going to yield about your other members. So try to reach that 250 member threshold because it'll be powerful and beneficial to you. This is the very last slide before Q&A. How do we get our first members? I think that you can add an invitation on your website for visitors to join your group, depending on what your group is for. If it's just for parents, then I think this should be actually in your admissions documentation, both the physical docs that you hand out and then also maybe the follow-up email or the thank you email. You can very easily put this in, an email signature, for instance, or just an ongoing reminder. Definitely send out invites to email subscribers, introducing the group and giving them a link to the group's page, and also allow them to invite other members. The great thing about Facebook is it allows other people to invite people to your group. And so, if there's parents that you're missing, or you can tell parents, hey, if there's somebody that you think might not see this email that belongs in this group, please go ahead and invite them. You can share the link on your social platforms, again, if this plans on being a more public group or something you're using for marketing. I don't know that this is really going to be applicable for a private parent group per se. And then make sure to include an invitation to your group for very specific lead magnets that you're using. Again, this is contextually based. Any other ideas that I didn't hit on? Any ideas for getting new group members or inviting parents?
I think it's a pretty good list.
Awesome. And that's it. That was a bear. I hope I didn't bore everybody to death, but I would love any questions that you have or input or ideas. I think that's always really powerful and beneficial for all of our members is when they hear other Montessori schools come up with, oh, here's what we think we're going to do. And I think we've got a good 6-7 minutes left. So we'll hang tight and see if there are any questions that come in. But I think I'd also like to yield the floor because I've monopolized the conversation yet again. Deneen, any other input you want to add just as far as Facebook groups go in general?
Well, I think we've said this a handful of times, just being consistent is imperative because then people can rely on, a consistency of schedules and ideas. So I just want to reiterate how important that is. And then that consistency, you hope, will allow other members to take things and run with it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I'm curious though, sorry. I'm curious about those that are on the call, if any of them have, like Teresa, Nikki, Nicole, Kelly, Kim, if you guys have private Facebook groups, or if this is something that you're kind of thinking about and not sure.
And I know, to pick on Nicole and David, they were thinking about it, but there were some, oh, here we go. Nicole chimed in. We just started one, but none of our parents have joined. Awesome. Let us know how that goes. Keep me updated. I'd love to write a blog post actually at some point, kind of as a follow-up of phase 2, and maybe use a few schools as case studies. Yeah, Teresa said thinking about it, not sure yet.
Right.
Curious for our members too, if there's something that's shying you away, something specific that makes you think this might not be the right approach. I'd love to hear what that is as well, because I think that could be a great addition to this conversation. It is hard to have just one more thing to manage. You have to send out emails and you have to send out blogs. Kim came in and said, our parents have a Facebook group, but it is run by the Parents Association. Oh, that's interesting. So it's for your parents, but I guess you don't own it. Is that correct? Is that the right word to use? Awesome. Kim just responded saying correct. I think that might worry me a little bit on some levels because I feel like you lose some control And I'm not trying to speak out of term, Kim. Do you have any of those concerns, or has that not been an issue at all? And Kim says that has not been an issue so far. So it looks like the Parents Association created the group, but they're allowed to post to it, which is fantastic. I will say this is a really good example. And Kim is one of the admins. So that's fantastic. This is a good example, though. I think one of the things I'll point at is if you don't, it doesn't mean that your parents won't. So your parents may really want this resource, and potentially, you get a smart, proactive parent out there that just decides, oh, okay, I can do this, and they're not doing anything wrong. But now you're in a position where you're not necessarily the guiding hand. And I think for a lot of schools, that's okay. That could even be a gift. It sounds like that's what Kim has. She has an awesome parents association that went and created that themselves. And now she has this resource that's serving her school, and it's no issue whatsoever. And that's fantastic. I think if you wanted more, I don't want to use the word control because it sounds stronger, but influence, it might be beneficial to start the creation process just to ensure that. And this is great for you, Kim, because your parent association did it. That I think is a lot different than one parent who now wields all of the power. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for that. That's very helpful as well. And if there are no more questions, I think we're ready to sign off. To our live members, always truly a pleasure to have you here. And thank you so much for your questions and input. It provides so much. Matt was out this week, but he should be back next week. Oh, next week, we're doing another Ask Me Anything thing. I said thing twice. I will be out, but Matt and Deneen are going to be on the line, and they're going to be doing the, what did you call that, Deneen? Is that the hot seat where Matt just fields questions?
Yeah, exactly.
So bring your worst. Let's really try to rattle them. That's the goal. Let's see how much we can throw at Matt Hillis in an hour.
Yes, because he's missed 3 coaching calls, so we're gonna get him hard next week.
That's exactly right. We're gonna make him pay is the goal. So you start asking him to define like obscure Latin words or whatever it is. I think we should just really go for the gold.
Oh, this is gonna be entertaining. You're gonna be sad to miss it.
I know. Well, I'll have the recording. I promise you. I'll put it on repeat somewhere.
Awesome. Yeah. So definitely bring your questions, ideas, and we'll carry the conversation. It'll be great.
That sounds great. Teresa says, thank you. Thank you. And we say this too much maybe, but it's the live members that I think really help kind of make this. So appreciate everybody that took the time out today, and we'll see you next Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern.
All right. Take care, everyone.
All right, everyone. Bye.